Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has vowed to respond more powerfully than before if Israel retaliates for Iran's ballistic missile attack against the Jewish state. On October 1st, the Islamic Republic fired off 181 ballistic missiles against Israel. Most were shot down by Israeli anti-missile defenses. So what now? Is a bigger war ahead? Well, joining us here in the studio with some insights is CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell. Chris, good to have you with us right here in the studio.
It's great to be here, Gary, and I'm glad to be on the global lane. We really enjoy the show.
Well, glad you do. So what do you make of this warning from Abbas Araghchi? Is Iran's bark bigger than their bite? What are their capabilities right now to respond if Israel does attack nuclear facilities or elsewhere?
Well, I think their bark is bigger than their bite, and they bark a lot. They've barked for many, many years. You know, that's the second time, the 181 ballistic missiles. There were 350 projectiles, including ballistic missiles, drones, rockets, and UAVs against Israel, let's see, April 13th. They were 99% of those were shot down. Most of the ballistic missiles were shot down. When you think of Iran militarily, they really don't have a kind of air force that can get to Israel. The army is 700 miles away, and they're not going to be marching through Syria on their way to Israel. So the ballistic missiles is really the main goal. And now, other than that, is the nuclear facilities. If they can get a nuclear bomb, that's a game changer. And putting that on a ballistic missile, you know, would put Israel, its existence under threat.
Well, I want to talk about that in a moment. But,
sure.
You know, President Biden says any Israeli response must be proportionate. He wants no targeting of Iranian nuclear development facilities. So how problematic is that for Israel?
Well, I think it's very problematic because Israel's looking at, you know, their very existence on an Iranian nuclear bomb, because they've been talking for years, ever since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, that they want to destroy the Jewish state. Sure. Now, if they get a nuclear bomb, they could do that, potentially. So proportionate, why Biden would actually say you got to be proportionate. You know, Israel has suffered 13,000 rockets in the last year from Hamas, 12,000 from Hezbollah, hundreds from Yemen, Syria, and Iran. So how proportionate would the U.S. be if they had that kind of missiles coming in just a year? And if you go back to 2005, Hamas has fired thousands more. So proportion seems to be maybe not a bit disconnected.
Well, what if they went through? What if they got through? I mean, Israel was able to shoot them down, but what if they didn't have that missile defense?
Exactly. So they had the Iron Dome, they had the David Sling, and they had the Arrow that can shoot missiles in the atmosphere, above the atmosphere. So if they didn't have that, they'd be looking at thousands of casualties, potentially damage to military installations. So Israel has to respond, and they have to try to eradicate. And I think, Gary, since October 7th, there's been a change in the mindset of Israelis. We can't live with Hamas. We need to take care of them. We can't live with Hezbollah on the northern border with well over 150,000 rockets. And now we need to do something with Iran to stop them.
Well, just last month, the IAEA reported Iran was close to reaching the 90% level of weapons-grade enriched uranium. That's enough for 4 nuclear explosive devices. And a year and a half ago, the IAEA believed Iran had already reached the 84% level.
Right.
So when Iran's foreign minister says the regime will respond more powerfully, might he be insinuating a nuclear weapon? What would be more powerful than a ballistic missile?
Right. A ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead on it would be something more powerful.
So Israel may have no choice then.
Yeah, they might. Exactly. And maybe this is just the opportunity they need after being attacked in April 13th and just a few days ago, when I was, like millions of other Israelis, in a bomb shelter. So you have to eliminate this threat. And it seems like a prime opportunity to go ahead and strike the nuclear facilities. And it would not only be a benefit to Israel, but it would be a benefit to the United States and all Western countries.
What do you see happening on Israel's northern front in Lebanon? Because Netanyahu has pledged to return people to places like Kiryat Shimon and so forth, but they have to be protected. What do you see happening?
Yeah, well, you know what it's like up there, Gary. You've served in Israel and Lebanon. I think that is one of their official war goals, to make sure that over 60,000 Israelis that had to evacuate on October 8th to get back to their homes. And then there's another a few million Israelis under rocket fire. So I think the ground offensive will continue, and they may try to establish a security zone from the Lebanese-Israeli border all the way up to the Litani River.
Okay, and finally, Chris, on the Gaza war front, Hamas says their leader, Yahya Sinwar, is alive, and they say they'll kill one hostage every time Israel hits Gaza civilians without warnings. Don't Hamas fighters shield themselves with civilians? So how does Israel save the remaining hostages?
Yeah, well, they do that. That's part of their strategy. They use human shields to defend themselves, and also when civilians get hurt, it's part of their propaganda. Then they blame Israel. So it's just one more diabolical effort by Hamas to really put so much pressure on the leadership of Israel and so much emotional pain on Israelis that consider those hostages just like their family.
Okay, Chris Mitchell, I know you're heading back to Israel soon, so God bless.
God bless you, Gary.
May He be with you, and know that be encouraged to know that a lot of people here are praying for you.
Thank you, Gary.